Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today. We're about to explore a very important topic: how to be kind without being used. We'll also look into the concept of compassion and how to cultivate it in a healthy way. On this first slide, you can see the title and the subtitle, which set the tone for our session. Over the next few minutes, we'll discuss practical ways to maintain kindness and compassion while protecting your own boundaries. So, let's get started. When good intentions meet the reality of how we treat each other, things can get complicated. We're often taught that kindness is an unquestionable virtue, something that always makes the world better. And I think most of us genuinely believe that. It's a moral constant, right? But what happens when we care so deeply that it starts to weigh us down? That's what I want to explore today. You see, many of us give our time, patience, and empathy freely. We want to help, to support, to connect. But sometimes, instead of gratitude, we encounter entitlement. That's when the dynamic shifts. What once felt like genuine compassion can start to feel like currency, something we're expected to give, to earn, or even to sacrifice ourselves for. This slide highlights an important idea. Sometimes, what we mean as kindness can turn heavy if we're not careful. It's a reminder that caring deeply isn't always enough. Because if we're giving out of obligation or expectation, it can become exhausting and even misused. So, as we go through this presentation, I want us to reflect on how to maintain our kindness without it turning into a burden. How do we balance genuine compassion with self-care? That's the core theme we're exploring. The world rarely teaches us exactly where kindness ends and self-respect begins. It's easy to get caught up in wanting to be helpful and caring, but sometimes, when others start to treat our empathy as an open invitation, that's where the problem lies. What happens then isn't true goodness, it's depletion. We start shrinking our own needs just to keep the peace, mistaking being used for being useful. And before we know it, kindness begins to feel like a tax we owe, something we do just to prove we're good enough. But this isn't a call to harden ourselves or become less kind. Instead, it's an invitation to evolve, to practice kindness with clarity, not guilt or obligation. Because real compassion, true kindness, never demands that we give until we're depleted. It's about understanding where our boundaries are and respecting them, so we can be kind without losing ourselves in the process. Understanding empathy is really about recognizing how powerful a signal it is. It shows others that you can feel, understand, and respond to their emotions. But here's the thing, not everyone interprets that signal the same way. For the wrong kind of person, empathy can actually serve as an entry point. It creates an emotional gap that they might try to walk right through. What looks like gentleness or kindness on your part can be seen by them as availability, as if you're open and accessible. And your listening, which is meant to be a sign of genuine understanding, might be perceived as permission for them to take advantage. So, it's really important to be aware of this dynamic, especially when we're trying to protect ourselves from exploitation, while still maintaining authentic empathy. It's about understanding these subtle cues and being cautious about how our signals might be misread. As we move forward, you'll start to notice some subtle cues from the people around you. These cues can be quite telling. For example, some individuals will praise your sensitivity, but then they might use that praise to secure favors or get what they want. It's like they're leveraging your empathy for their own benefit. Then there are those who overshare personal details or create a sense of false intimacy. At first, it might seem like they're building trust, but often they lean on guilt to keep you compliant or to maintain control. They're testing boundaries in a way that's manipulative, even if they're not fully aware of it. And let's not forget the chronic, help me personalities. These are the people who always seem to need your help, yet rarely reciprocate. They keep coming back for more, which can be exhausting. All of these behaviors are what we call empathy, exploitation traits. They are essentially behavioral markers that signal someone is testing how far your compassion can be stretched, whether consciously or subconsciously. Recognizing these cues is crucial because it helps you protect your boundaries and maintain your emotional well-being as we continue exploring healthy ways to navigate empathy. It's not paranoia to see patterns or cues in people's behavior. It's actually pattern recognition. When you notice these signals, it doesn't mean you're being cynical or mistrusting. Instead, it's about understanding what's really going on beneath the surface. Recognizing these cues helps you stay aware without jumping to conclusions. Most importantly, this awareness isn't about cynicism. It's about keeping your kindness genuine and sustainable. When you're aware of what's happening around you, you can respond with empathy rather than reactions born out of suspicion. And that's the key: awareness fuels empathy. When we truly understand what's happening, we can connect more deeply without being manipulated or taken advantage of. It's about growing compassion, not harvesting mistrust. That's how we build genuine relationships and maintain kindness in a busy, complex world. Let's take a closer look at the assertive empathy model. Now, some people might think kindness and firmness are mutually exclusive, but that's actually a misconception. In fact, they are not contradictions at all. Instead, they are two essential halves of emotional maturity. Think of it as caring deeply, but also being conscious of how and when to express that care. When we combine kindness with firmness, we create a balanced approach, one that shows genuine concern while also setting clear boundaries. This combination allows us to communicate assertively without sacrificing compassion. It really underscores the idea that effective emotional intelligence involves care with consciousness. So, in the context of this presentation, embracing both kindness and firmness helps us build stronger, more authentic interactions. Today, I want to talk about the core of the assertive empathy model, which rests on three guiding truths. The first is that compassion includes the self. This means that true compassion isn't just about caring for others. It also involves caring for your own well-being. You are part of the circle of care, and that means you can't give effectively if you're empty or exhausted. It's important to recognize that kindness isn't just about being nice to others. It's about a balance. When kindness starts to exclude your own well-being, it shifts from genuine compassion into compliance. That's when you're doing what's expected without honoring your own needs. So the key takeaway here is that compassion must include self-care. When we acknowledge this, we create a healthier, more sustainable way to show care, one that benefits everyone, including ourselves. This principle ties into the overall theme of the presentation: practicing empathy that is assertive, authentic, and balanced. Let's talk about why boundaries are so important when it comes to kindness. You see, people tend to trust generosity that feels voluntary, not something that's forced or obligatory. When giving is perceived as genuine and spontaneous, it resonates more deeply. And here's the key point: boundaries don't limit giving, they actually make it more credible. They help clarify intentions and set clear expectations, which in turn builds trust. When we establish healthy boundaries, we show that our kindness is authentic and sustainable. So, in the bigger picture of building trust and meaningful relationships, boundaries serve as a foundation. They ensure that our generosity remains sincere and trustworthy, reinforcing the overall theme that true kindness is both generous and credible. Sometimes, saying no is actually the most loving thing we can do. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's often necessary to create healthy boundaries. When we stop enabling harmful behaviors, whether in ourselves or others, we're honoring growth and healing instead of perpetuating dysfunction. Withdrawal from what's unhealthy isn't about being cruel or punishing. It's about respecting the process of change. And that's an important point. Kindness rooted in awareness transforms into true discernment. It's knowing when to give support, when to pause and reflect, and when to let go entirely. This kind of discernment requires us to be present and mindful, recognizing what's best for everyone involved. Ultimately, it's about acting with compassion and wisdom, understanding that sometimes the most loving act is saying no. Let us see how one can practice to be staying kind while standing firm. This is such an important aspect of maintaining integrity and respect in our interactions. Practicing kindness doesn't mean we have to compromise our principles or become passive. Instead, it's about finding that balance where we stand firm on our values while still showing compassion and understanding. One way to do this is through active listening, truly hearing the other person's perspective, even if we disagree. It helps us respond with kindness rather than defensiveness or hostility. Another key point is patience, giving ourselves and others grace, especially in challenging moments. And remember, staying calm and composed under pressure shows strength, not weakness. This practice aligns with our overall theme of leading with integrity and empathy. By cultivating these habits, we can stand firm in our convictions while fostering positive relationships. So, let's keep this balance in mind as we continue to grow and develop our leadership skills. Let's take a moment to consider your motives before offering help. Are you truly helping because you want to, or is there an underlying fear of what might happen if you do? Sometimes, our reasons for helping can be more about avoiding guilt than genuine compassion. And that's important to recognize, because when help is born out of guilt, it can eventually turn into resentment, both for us and for the person receiving it. This highlights a crucial point in our overall journey. Authentic connection and support come from genuine concern, not obligation or guilt. So, before you extend a hand, check in with yourself. Are you helping because you want to, or because you feel you should? Being honest about that can make all the difference in fostering true, healthy relationships. Now, let's talk about listening without absorbing. It's a common misconception that empathy means emotional osmosis, that you have to take on someone's feelings as your own. But that's not quite right. You can truly understand what someone is going through, recognize their pain or struggles, without actually taking ownership of those emotions yourself. It's about being present, attentive, and compassionate, but also maintaining healthy boundaries. This approach helps us to support others effectively without becoming overwhelmed or emotionally drained. Remember, genuine empathy allows us to connect and provide support, all while keeping our own emotional balance intact. This skill is essential in fostering trust and understanding, especially in challenging conversations. Let's talk about setting limits instead of issuing ultimatums. It's important to communicate clearly and kindly, like saying, "I want to help, but I can't give more right now." This approach respects your own bandwidth and boundaries without placing blame or creating conflict. By framing it this way, you're being honest about what you can offer, which helps maintain a healthy relationship and keeps the conversation open. Remember, setting limits is about protecting your own well-being while still showing you care. This ties into the overall theme of healthy communication, being assertive and respectful at the same time. Now, let's talk about the 70-30 rule. Essentially, this is a helpful guideline for managing our interactions. If you notice that a particular interaction or relationship consistently feels like it's 70% draining and only 30% nourishing, that's a signal. It's a sign that it might be time to step back and reassess. Maybe it's time to rebalance that dynamic, or perhaps even consider releasing that connection altogether. The key here is to prioritize relationships and interactions that uplift us more than they drain us. Remember, maintaining that balance is crucial for our well-being and overall happiness. So, keep this rule in mind as a simple yet powerful way to gauge where you stand and make intentional choices about where to invest your energy. Let's talk about replacing guilt with gratitude. When you find yourself pulling back from overgiving, take a moment to thank yourself. Thank yourself for learning discernment and recognizing your limits. This shift in mindset doesn't mean you're less kind. In fact, it protects the quality of your kindness. By being grateful for your boundaries, you're fostering a more authentic and sustainable way to care for others. Remember, true kindness isn't about sacrificing yourself. It's about giving thoughtfully and with awareness. So, replacing guilt with gratitude helps you stay compassionate without losing yourself in the process. Real kindness isn't about servitude or trying to please everyone all the time. Instead, it's about expressing our sovereignty, our true self, in a gentle, authentic way. It's grounded in inner strength, not in seeking validation from others. When we embody this kind of kindness, we don't chase approval. We radiate confidence and stability from within. Remember, you don't owe everyone access to your empathy. That's a crucial point. Genuine kindness involves knowing when to give and when to hold back, because authenticity matters more than always being available. And at its core, the most beautiful form of compassion includes accountability. True kindness recognizes that sometimes caring means holding someone, or ourselves, accountable. It's about knowing when to intervene with compassion and when to step back, allowing natural consequences to teach lessons that pure kindness alone might not be able to deliver. So, as we've been exploring throughout this presentation, real kindness is a balance. It's about strength, authenticity, and understanding that sometimes the greatest act of compassion is allowing growth through accountability. When you stay kind but stand firm, you really set the stage for creating a world that's generous, but not naive. It's about balancing compassion with boundaries, so kindness doesn't become a weakness, but a strength. This approach fosters an environment where empathy can truly heal, helping us address exhaustion and weariness instead of hiding from it. And here's the key: kindness that respects itself can never be used against us. It's not about being a pushover or allowing ourselves to be exploited. Instead, it's about sharing kindness in a way that's sustainable and genuine. When we do that, we build trust and understanding, and we contribute to a more compassionate, resilient world. This ties back to our overall theme: creating positive change through authentic connection. Standing firm with kindness isn't just about personal integrity, it's about shaping a healthier, more empathetic society. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this helpful, please like, share, subscribe, and comment below. Your feedback really means a lot. Now, I want to leave you with one last thought. How to New is really about inner athletics. It's not about competing against others, but about striving for excellence within ourselves. It's about pushing our own boundaries, improving our mindset, and cultivating resilience. Remember, true growth comes from focusing on our internal game, not just external achievements. So, keep practicing, stay committed to your personal best, and thank you again for being here.